Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier. Joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. It's draft season. That means it's time to do prospect profiles. It's time to get into all of the players the Giants are considering with the third overall pick. It's funny, Nick, because there were years in the past where the Giants were picking, and we even had one recently in the 20s or 17s, and it would be a lot harder to predict this and narrow it down to players who are in play. But nowadays, it's top pick. So we know it's going to be only a few players unless they trade down. And I don't think they're going to trade down. And this player might be one of the reasons why. And that player we're profiling today is Travis Hunter out of Colorado, the cornerback / wide receiver. I mean, we've hinted at it before. I'll hint at it again. This is the player I want in this draft class. Last draft class, it was Drake May for me. I loved Drake May. This draft class, it is Travis Hunter. And so we'll talk about today why. We'll talk about a lot of things, how he is as a corner, how he projects as a receiver, how the Giants might use him if they draft him, and things of that nature. But where's a good place to start for Travis Hunter?
Good place to start, Dan. I'm not even sure because there really is there was nobody else who has set an example similar to Travis Hunter, right? I've heard people in the draft community say like a Champ Bailey type when it comes to his cornerbacking skills. But this is a player who could play either wide receiver or cornerback. And I think there is a realistic outcome where he could play full-time corner and then part-time wide receiver. I don't think he'll be able to do both because there's 17 games in a season and he's not the biggest guy in the world, and that wear and tear will certainly, and the fatigue will certainly catch up with him because I believe he is a human being. But with that said, if the Giants or if any team need that shut down cornerback who really is ascending, if you watch his 2023 tape and then you go into his 2024 tape, you could see how much of a step he took forward as a cornerback and how smart he was as a cornerback. And that doesn't even touch on the elite athletic ability. If I go through my profile, dude, it's just elite, elite, elite. I don't think I've ever written so many elites. And again, another reason for that is because he's elite at both cornerback and wide receiver. And we'll bounce back and forth. We can focus on one if you want, but I just want to talk a little bit about wide receiver because you invoked the name Justin Jefferson in previous weeks. And you're not saying that he is that player, but his overall movement skills remind you of that. And there's just not a lot of players in the National Football League who even have those movement skills that Justin Jefferson possesses. So that as a foundation, along with his ability to command the catch point, which we saw all throughout 2024 at Colorado, just makes me be like, dude, him and Malik Neighbors together, that is just an insane combination that every defensive coordinator is going to be ripping their hair out trying to figure out how to cover those two. And Brian Daboll is a creative enough offensive mind to be able to leverage both of their skill sets out there at the same exact time. And that gets me really excited. And that doesn't even talk about the defensive side. So there's a lot that we can get into. I just wanted to get that off my chest. What are your thoughts, Dan?
There's so much we can get into, and it's so hard to know where to start exactly, Nick, because he can play both positions, and I think he can play both positions at a super high level. I think with what you said as far as will he be able to play both in the NFL level, I think it's probably safer to say, like you suggested, we can't expect 100% of the snaps for each position or close to it like he basically did at Colorado. Now, with that said, Nick, from a skill set standpoint, I don't see any reason why he couldn't play both positions at a high level, the NFL level. I think it's more so what you said, the wear and tear, I mean, you have to have such crazy endurance and stamina to play both sides of the ball. These are things that you might be able to do at the college level. You might not be able to do at NFL level, but I could see a scenario, Nick, where he's like an 80 to 90% snap player on the defense side of the ball and a 60% player or something close to that on offense. Maybe that's a little too egregious and it's a little too pie in the sky type of stuff. But I don't know, man. And there is like an argument to be made that he's the most valuable draft pick by far in this class if you do think that he can play both sides of the ball at the NFL level. And I think Scott Barrett did a good job of breaking this down because he said the argument for making Travis Hunter a full-time wide receiver instead of full-time quarterback is that the value side of it. It's you get the top 10 highest paid wide receivers average 32.1 million. The top 10 highest paid corners average 22.2 million. So you're getting more value. And you know Shane has thought about positional value in this way. But then he said the argument for letting him try to be a two-way player, corner and receiver, is you're essentially getting $54.3 million a year in value, and you're not paying that because you're only going to be paying him one of those two sides. And it really makes him such a unique prospect. We can start on either side of the ball. I guess we can start. I want to start maybe corner because I think he's more likely to play more corner if the Giants draft him. Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
I think I lean in that direction, but it really just depends on his landing spot and what that specific team. But if we just want to focus on the New York Giants, there's a part of me that's like, am I certain with it? I think it really just depends on Tay Banks and how the Giants feel about Tay Banks, because
Sure.
I can see I can see a reality where he is more of a full-time wide receiver. But then you're putting a lot of chips in the basket of Tay Banks. We saw what happened with that last year. If I'm going to choose, I would say he would play defense, and it would be him and Adebo starting with Tay Banks as that third. And maybe Tay Banks rotates in and Hunter takes a breather because he's being used on defense. If the Giants could organize that and if they trusted their defense enough to do that from a communication standpoint, and that would be a lot on Tay Banks' plate, then maybe that could be an outcome. But yeah, I think I lean in that direction.
Well, what makes that even weirder or not weirder, but what makes it even more interesting to me is who would play the slot then, right? And I
Sure.
think Drew Phillips. Oh, you're saying, but I thought you said, oh, Banks is a rotational guy at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
But a rotational guy who's going to get like 30 snaps possibly. But again, like that's a very difficult thing to do defensively. And I think Hunter might be able to do that from a mental standpoint and be able to be in those defensive meeting rooms and catch up to speed. I don't know if Banks will be in there full time no matter what, but taking Banks off the field, getting him out of his groove, how is that going to affect him mentally? That's an issue I would say the Giants would have to suss through if they bring
hmm,
Hunter on board and if Hunter does not play a full complement of defensive snaps. Because you're also like kind of punting on a first round pick from just 2 years ago, who I still think is very talented, but just isn't quite there mentally.
sure. And I don't think they should punt on Banks too, because there have been some really good reps. And I remember even moments from earlier last season and early in season before where we're like, this is starting to click for him and it's starting to look good. So I agree with that. And I know Adebo is going to be on the outside. They signed him to a contract where he was. And I don't think you want to they located Drew Phillips, did an excellent job of that. One of their better mid-round picks ever for this franchise, quite frankly, at least looking that shaping up that way. You don't want to take him off the field. The other side of the ball, you also have depth there too. You just re-signed Darius Slayton to a multi-year contract, and he's a player who belongs on the field with a good quarterback if you could
Mhm.
ever get one. And you could look at it like, okay, well, you can play Hunter, you can play Hunter, Neighbors, and Slayton, and you could play either Neighbors or Hunter in the slot. We said last year one thing we didn't like about Brian Dable is or at least I said this, and I think you agreed, was I wanted to see more Neighbors in the slot, and I think
I
that's a
agree.
good
Yeah.
way for all receivers. That the Cardinals should have used Harrison more in the slot, things like that. That's one way to get him in the slot, but I also think Hunter can play the slot. So there seems to be a little bit more give on the offensive side of the ball if the Giants were to draft Hunter as far as playing time goes. But you could look at it like this too, Nick. You could have him playing equal parts almost, and then really have a lot of depth at those two positions. It's a good problem to have, no matter how you look at it. Let's talk about less about how he might fit the Giants, and more about who he is as a prospect. Okay, I'll say this. I'll put you on the spot here, Nick. From what you've seen on tape, two questions. One, do you think right now, as he is right now, is he a better wide receiver or cornerback? And two, from a projection standpoint, do you think he'd be a better wide receiver or cornerback at the NFL level?
It's tough. It's tough. I don't like doing this. I think I might
Yeah.
say better wide receiver though. And I love his cornerbacking skills. I think his cornerbacking skills are still on the ascent. Like I said, I think he took a big jump from 2023 to 2024. Whereas wide receiver, yes, he did take a jump. He had over 1,000 yards in 2024. But what I see him do after the catch, at the catch point, releasing off the line of scrimmage, running routes, it's tough for me to really find something in his wide receiver tape that I'm like, that's something that's going to be an issue in the NFL, right? Like it's pretty well rounded. The only thing you could say is he's not the biggest, and maybe stronger, more physical cornerbacks, if they can land hands on him and press before he gets to his release package, that could possibly be an issue just because he's like six. What is he? 6 foot, slightly under 190. I think he's like
Yep.
190 or 188. So he's a little slender, but that's really it, dude. That's kind of like my concerns with him as a wide receiver. He had over a 60% contested catch rate. How many times did he climb the ladder? Looked like he was levitating, bring the football down, fall violently, right? Like he kind of
Yeah.
had one thing I'm a little concerned about with him as a wide receiver, and I'm kind of joking here, but not really. He had too many of those Mike Williams falls. You know what I'm talking about? Where he's up in the air and he's making like this crazy catch, and then he doesn't fall with grace. He falls freaking hard onto the ground, dude, and like you feel it, but he gets right back up because he's a tough SOB. So I would lean towards wide receiver for both of them, but I still think there's this upside we have not seen yet at cornerback, but we really saw it for most of that 2024 season.
And I think that's the best way to describe it. I almost feel almost identical to you in that regard. Let's start with the first your receiver take. You'd think based on his size that that's the weakness, right? But then you see him on tape and he's super strong at the catch point and he gets back up after those hits. And then you watch the flip side, his corner tape, and you'll watch and he's not afraid to come up and make a tackle on a screen pass that he diagnoses and he'll shoot right at that wide receiver's legs and take him out. And he's not afraid in the run game either. So he's a physical tough player despite only being 188. So I don't view that as a weakness. And as far as the rest of his receiver game goes, and I'll talk about the corner part in a second, because I would agree personally that I think he's a better receiver than corner right now. I don't necessarily think that means he'll be that at the next level. I think he could be kind of elite in both, as insane as that really sounds, but it's not really when you watch the tape and make a projection. But as far as the receiver stuff goes, I want to take this quote from Matt Harmon, who does reception perception and charts every snap of his. And I just want to see what you think about this because this just stood out to me. It was honestly a stunning quote. He said, while Hunter can be loose with some details in his routes at certain areas of the routes, his release package against press is advanced and quite frankly stunning for a player not fully focused on playing receiver. He is nearly impossible for defenders to get a hold of at the line of scrimmage because of his footwork is so precise and explosive. He is willing to engage in hand fighting, and his corner skills give him great anticipatory sense for beating corners in press. Once he gets past the jam, the rep is over and he gains leverage with ease. I saw that too, and that is probably the number one thing. If you ask any scout, like, what's my number one concern with any receiver entering any draft class? What's the number one concern with Ted McMillan? Even Neighbors, like, what was his only concern? It was, can he beat press at the NFL level? I don't have that concern with Hunter.
I don't necessarily have that concern, but I do think there are I'm talking about going up against Patrick Surtain and you're going up against Eric Stingley and you're going up against those top cornerbacks. And what I referenced before was more strength oriented.
Okay.
But like, yeah, I don't have a concern when it comes to his feet. As Harmon said, they're freaking lightning quick and he knows how to release, how to attack leverage against off man, press man, soft man, jams, any of that. And then to bring it back to the New York Giants for a second, when you do have Malik Neighbors, one of those wide receivers has to be on the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, it could be Darius Slayton, but one of the wide receivers has to be on the line of scrimmage. The other ones are going to be off. You can put Hunter on the line of scrimmage. You could put Neighbors on the line of scrimmage. You can have either of these players be the X for you. You can have either of these players be the Z for you. You can put either of them in the slot. They are interchangeable because they are both elite wide receiving prospects. And when you talk about defeating press, if you're going up against a physical type of team who wants to dictate, a guy like Hunter, if you want to try to jam him, good luck, because he can beat you off the line of scrimmage. His athletic ability, his explosiveness, his burst, all those things, his acceleration. If you don't roll that safety over the top of him and you're trying to jam him at the line of scrimmage, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to get back. So there's not going to be a lot of non-elite cornerbacks who are going to attempt to press him. And if you're going to roll that safety over top, then you have Malik Neighbors on the other side. And that's the predicament I want the New York Giants to put all of these defensive coordinators in. And Hunter offers you that while also giving you the possibility of being an elite cornerback, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing to think about when you break it down like that, Nick, because it gives them so much upside. Like,
and not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but with Russ throwing the football too, that's like a whole nother. This isn't Daniel Jones. This isn't like, oh, well, he's open or any of the other quarterbacks. Giants. This is with Russell Wilson, a guy who will diagnose that one-on-one matchup. Look at that safety. Safety's not rolling up. Okay, I got Hunter down there. Okay, I got Malik down this way, and he knows he has those guys. And then Dable's going to employ them whatever way he sees fit against those specific defenses. I just think it offers the New York Giants so much bandwidth of attack. Like, dude, if this was some sort of like video game where like the attack, like the offense, if this is Madden, dude, like your attack level for this, and like the Giants offense might not be in the 95, right? Because they don't have that talent, but their ability to attack down the football field is going to be rated so high with a quarterback like Russ, who's willing to pull the trigger, and those two wide receivers. If the offensive line can hold up, this could be dangerous. And that's only going to help the rushing attack. And it's only going to help the quick passing game. And the offense will finally actually be an offense that can instill some fear into defenses, despite the fact that they don't necessarily have an all-star quarterback. But Russell Wilson can do enough to leverage these pieces. And if Dable does his job and the offensive line does his job, I just think this offense could be much better than we even anticipate right now.
I do too.
Hunter's there.
What'd you say? If Hunter's there. Yeah, I completely agree with that as well. And I'll say this, like, even if you, so I looked at some of that Steelers tape and it's, everybody thinks, oh, to get this vertical game, yeah, maybe we'll take a couple shots a game because, you need the offensive line to hold up. That wasn't always the case with the Steelers offense last year. There were a lot of quick diagnoses from Russ, just like we saw from Tyrod Taylor in 2023, 2-3 steps, hit your back foot and make that decision, get the ball out. And it's a vertical play, but it's thrown really early in under 2.5 seconds. That's what good quarterbacks do. We just never saw it with the Giants for 6 years. But the point being, it doesn't have to be the offensive line that creates this. And I'll say this, there's other aspects to it, right? Like if let's say teams start to play too far off the Giants, Hunter will kill you if you throw it to him around the line of scrimmage. And so will Neighbors. Like if you give them any kind of space to work with. So now you have that in your bag as well. And part of what you said before when you were breaking down as a receiver, I honestly feel very strongly about what you said, that I don't really see any weakness in his game. And I love the way that he stacks vertically to when he wins off the line of scrimmage. That's going to be a big help for any quarterback, especially Russell Wilson, who can win vertically. But it's everything, dude. I love how you said how he levitates in the air. So many times Sanders would throw him a ball up and it would hang in the air and Hunter would just make that play. How about in the red zone with the hand fighting and him winning in the red zone on these quick routes that he has to just beat a DB on? There's not much space to work with. How about the in breakers that he makes plays on? How about the way that he attacks the football with his hands? He's one of the best plucking hands catchers I've seen in a long time. These are all nuances of playing the wide receiver position, right? Release package, stacking in the vertical game, attacking the ball in the air, the ability to, well, the one thing that would be more athletic skills wise is the ability to kind of levitate, as you said, and kind of adjust. But this doesn't even touch on his raw speed, his explosiveness, his hips, and how loose he is as an athlete and his flexibility. Like, these are all just the raw athletic traits. And then you look at just the numbers behind it all. And I'll reference this again, reception perception by Matt Harmon, because he did an evaluation on Hunter and his route tree, dude, it's lit up in green. I haven't seen this in a while for a receiver prospect. He runs the 9 route in green percentile, the corner, the post, the dig, the out, the comeback, the curl, the slant, the flat, everything else, the screen. These are all in green. For a prospect, you just don't see that often. Like, it's why I said he's the clear-cut best receiver in this prospect in this class. I don't even think it's close. And that, as far as like, I'll ask you one more fun one. How about this? Who did you like better? Whose tape did you like better? And whose projection did you like better? As just a pure receiver, Neighbors or Hunter?
That's really good.
Tough one.
That's a very tough one. And I really love the fact that you're just putting me on the spot here. I think I could lean Hunter, I think.
Okay.
It's just something like, look, Hunter is more fluid, I think, than Neighbors. And Neighbors was very fluid. Neighbors has this explosiveness, but I can't sit here and be like, oh, well, Neighbors is certainly more explosive than Travis Hunter. I don't know if I strongly believe that, right? So when you juxtapose these two next to each other, I think Hunter may offer a different level of even yards after the catch than Neighbors, who's also pretty elite in that fashion. I think they're both elite prospects. And I don't use that term. Like, you guys listen to this podcast for a while. I don't use elite often. I didn't use elite for Rome Odunze last year. I liked Rome Odunze, but I used elite for Malik Neighbors and Marv as well. And hopefully Marv will live up to that, right? Travis Hunter is elite. So I think I do lean a little bit more towards Travis than I even would Malik. And I'm like sitting here, is that crazy? I don't think it is.
What was your grading? Nick is a very tough grader when he does these draft prospect profiles. You'll see in there like players you expect to go in round 1 that are just like, maybe he'll be a starter type, or he'll project as like a starter type. What was your grade for Hunter?
It's a 7.85.
Is that one of the highest you've given in the last few drafts?
It's the highest I've ever given.
It's the highest you've ever given. Yeah. This is the highest grade you've ever given on tape to any player.
Now, the caveat to this is like, it's a little bit difficult to evaluate somebody who is so good at 2 separate positions, right? Because I've never really encountered this before. If this was one position, would it be that high? Probably still. But yeah, I gave him a 7.85, which is a perennial all-pro talent. It's higher than that, because I think this guy would be an all-pro type of player if he can stay healthy and if he gets the chance to focus on. Because again, a lot of this part is like a little bit unknown, but everything I hear about this guy, more so than other prospects, is he's wildly smart, dude.
Yep.
And he's adaptive and he understands football and he loves football, which is one thing, but he can go out into the defensive meeting rooms, understand his job, and then go into the offense, learn that offense, and then know what he has to do. And I'm looking for those types of players. I know every coaching staff is looking for those types of players. And that's one of the reasons why he's a transcendent type of prospect. And it's not just how good he is as a corner and a wide receiver. It's also that he really knows how to play these positions and he really wants to get better at playing these positions. He has that professionalism already about him, according to a lot of the things that I hear, when that tends to be the problem when a lot of young people come into the NFL. He already has that baseline. So if you have that baseline along with all these talents, I think the sky is the limit.
Right. The off-field stuff's through the roof. And we've always said, Nick, when you want to be like not just an all-pro, but like potentially a generational player, we use that. Some people use that term. Though I believe that as far as any prospect I've studied so far doing this draft class, he's the closest to what the generational term actually is and should be. If you want to be that, you also have to be that motivated player off the field and love football. And everything I've read about him is he is that guy. So that, and I love what you said. Like, I think a lot of what he does playing both positions helps him prepare to be a better player at each position. Playing corner helps him become a better receiver. You can see it on the tape against zone. Playing receiver helps him become a better corner, especially with the hands fighting and things of that nature. So I just don't see from a receiver standpoint any real weakness in his game personally. I guess the only thing you could say is he the fastest player in the NFL? I don't know. He didn't time in the 40, right? He didn't do any of the combine stuff.
Not that I've seen, no.
Yeah. So I don't know what his like true raw speed is.
I have to say it's like 4.42 as like
I would think it's in that range. Yeah.
4 maybe.
What was Neighbors? 4.41 was Neighbors? I don't, or was he sub 4.4?
Was he 4.39? I can look it up right now.
It might have been 4.39.
Yeah, he didn't run at the combine either, though, right?
And he didn't run at the combine. I think it was a pro day for him. And maybe Hunter will run at the Colorado Pro Day. We're recording this before that. I'm not sure when this is going to drop.
Need to, though.
He doesn't need to. Yeah.
The thing, like a lot of people are realizing I don't need to, like, because you had to train for these events. Right?
I know.
A lot of athletes are starting to, and look, the Giants got burnt by that. Not to deviate too much here, because I know we're pressed on time, but like Evan Neal was like, "Oh, I don't need to test at the combine," and we're like, "Whoa, he's good," right. And we're like, well, "Actually, he's not." And
potentially it could be the case with Marv. I don't want to say it. I just think they need to find a better way to use him, Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah. But it's not great looking amazing so far with Arizona.
I feel much more comfortable with Malik Neighbors.
If you did it over, if the Giants did it over and both were on the board, would you take Marv over Malik? No, I don't think I would by any means. I think the Giants get the best receiver in that class by a good, and I'm excited about that. So,
hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. The great year of 2025 is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's TIMELINE.
So yeah, let's talk more now about what he could offer as a corner, because we've touched on a lot of what he is as a receiver, and it's phenomenal. But as a corner,
as a receiver too, just because I want to focus on this. Like, what did we talk about a lot with the Giants' offense over the last few years? It's that the teams are playing, top down so aggressively, right? Mm-hmm. These teams are going to be scared to be beat deep with Russ, Darius Slayton, Malik Neighbors, and Hunter. And that's going to open up the screen game. And this was the best screen offense that I've seen the New York Giants run since I covered them. It wasn't great by any means last year, but it was better than what we've seen, right? Yeah. So with Hunter, though, you're going to see more quarters. You're going to see more palms against 3x1. You're going to see more cover 4, more shells that are deep, allowing the Giants to run the football. But that's also going to open up the screen game. And why I'm bringing this up is the yards after the catch for I almost did it again, for Travis Hunter is just phenomenal. I know he only had, I think, like 476 yards, but that's because Colorado's offense, man, they had Shador, but they had such a bad offensive line that Pat Shurmur was trying to just do whatever he could and simplify everything to get the football out of Shador's hands and into Hunter's arms as quickly as possible. The Giants offensive line can solidify a little bit, man. It's just, you can attack him deep. You can attack him near the line of scrimmage, and a guy like him and a guy like Neighbors, a guy like Wandale even, they can make some guys miss, dude. And you can beat people like that, get them close to the line of scrimmage, hit them over the top with Russ's arm. So it's just the options make me make me very interested.
No, I hear you, dude. If they add Hunter to this offense and defense and offense, we don't know exactly what he'll play. Let's say he plays a good amount of offense with the Giants if they draft him. From a schematic standpoint, there's no reason this offense shouldn't be good schematically. Now,
Yeah.
again, obviously, every NFL offense lives and dies by the quarterback play. So it's and the offensive line play, but to me, it's even more the quarterback play by a wide margin. So Russ would have to play at least as good as he played last year for that to be the case, at minimum. Though
Mhm.
again, I think Jameis Winston plays the quarterback position really well. It just makes stupid decisions, which hurt him. But as far as getting through his progressions, it's really good stuff. So if he had to play as well, and he believes it's going to be a competition still, Jameis, he said that yesterday in his introductory presser. The Giants have said a little bit otherwise, but you never know who's going to end up playing. I think both of them are capable, though, of doing what we said, taking advantage of the schematic advantage that the personnel offers you, because that's what it is, Nick. Like, the personnel is going to offer you a schematic advantage in the screen game, in the vertical game, and in the run game with Tracy and whoever they add there via the draft. And I swear to God, I hope
Kyle
they draft a
Monangai.
running back. What?
Kyle Monangai, let's go.
Oh, I love the Rutgers kid. I love him.
Love
He gets
Monangai.
no hype, and he was
Bro,
when I had to watch too much Rutgers this year because my brother. I've watched like 3 random Rutgers games.
so good.
He gets no hype despite being their whole offense and actually really good at football. And you'll get
And
him in day 3, guaranteed.
of course, everybody who like has listened to this podcast for a while knows that I love those type of backs, like Aldrich Estime and the Kyle
Mhm.
Monangai. They're going to run like a 4.65, but I don't
Doesn't
even
matter.
care. Put them out there, and somehow they're still going to outrun DBs sometimes.
We cannot miss running back in this draft class. It would be such a short-sighted decision to not draft a running back in a class like this, in my opinion, at least. So I really hope that they really add to that room. And I think they will. Shane did it a lot in Buffalo. They kept taking running
Yeah,
backs basically every draft class. It's something that Kyle Shanahan does. But anyway, back to the point of what this offense can be. All 3 of those areas, the vertical, the screen game, and the run game, will open up with adding a player like Hunter. So for what it could do for the Giants offense and anybody who plays quarterback or O-line for this team, it's phenomenal. Now let's talk about corner, because corner is really interesting to me, because I love what you said earlier about how I think there's even more potential for him to grow at this position than at wide receiver. Because when I watch him at corner, I see some unbelievable moments. And I think I love how he diagnoses plays at times. He's aggressive on screens, and he's not afraid of contact, which is something that can be argued at times. We may have had concerns of with somebody like Deontay Banks and players in the past at corner. I don't think that's a problem for him. I think he does a really good job in zone. And obviously, one thing that's clear and about no matter where you put him or no matter how his development goes, he's going to be a playmaker for the Giants defense. His hands at the catch point and his understanding and instincts is going to make him, in my opinion, a minimum 6 interception type guy for the Giants any and every year. I just think that's how it's going to go for him. Teams might start to not throw at him, but there are some moments on tapes and some reps I've seen that people put on Twitter, Nick, and some of the film breakdowns where he may lose in these one-on-one matchups as far as like sticky coverage goes. I don't think he's I don't think it's like I watched Patrick Surtain at
yeah.
Alabama, for example. So where do you think he can grow the most as a corner?
I think from an instinct standpoint, he could probably grow. Now, I think instincts wise, from a top down perspective, and that's what he would be playing a lot with Shane Bowen, meaning
Mhm.
that he is off man or off zone, or, it's pattern match type thing. He can read similar to the cornerback we were talking about yesterday. That is escaping my mind at the moment. Who were we
Uh,
talking about yesterday?
Draft wise,
I think it was draft wise, and
was
I'm
it Will
going,
Johnson?
yeah, similar
Okay.
to Will Johnson. I don't even know if we did that live, but when they can play from depth and they're reading the wide receiver, and they can also use their peripheral vision to see what the quarterback is doing, and then they see that quarterback turn and start to just that little micro movement where they raise their arm, and it's like, okay, this is a quick game concept. I'm playing from depth. That quarterback has committed. I can jump that route. Travis Hunter does that great. I think he did it against UCF on a play. It's a very similar play where he did that. It was off man. He just jumped it. Will Johnson also does that phenomenally. I think Hunter has a little bit more upside just overall in coverage than Will Johnson. I do like Will Johnson. Watching Will Johnson in 2023, though, and I don't know if I said this on the podcast or if it was just to you, watching Will, so apologies if this is redundant, Will Johnson in 2023 against Ohio State against Marvin Harrison, they rolled coverage over the top of Will Johnson like the entire game. So it wasn't just Will Johnson shutting down Marvin Harrison. Like I've heard some people insinuate, there was a lot of safety help over the top, and Will Johnson was taking trail, which is fine. And that's no slight on Johnson. I think Johnson's a good prospect. But back to Travis Hunter, I love how Hunter plays from depth and he's driving through that catch point. When he's in man coverage, I think there might be times where he can just lose leverage sometimes. And I don't see it all that often, but there are times where he just will lose some stickiness. And I don't even exactly know how to quantify it. I just think with more reps, he can just be more in phase. And I say that just because there's really no athletic deficiency or any reason why he shouldn't be in phase all the time, other than maybe him just anticipating a move that doesn't happen because the wide receiver put a good move on him, which is going to
Right.
happen sometimes. But when you think about his athletic ability, what part of Travis Hunter is like, oh, no, dude, guy's quick feet, guy's fluid as hell. The guy can spin, he can keep his weight down low, center of gravity low, everything low and good and balanced and controlled. He's a very controlled mover. He can backpedal very smoothly. He can just click and close like this because he's instantaneous with his movement, very sudden, very immediate. So I think the sky's the limit again for him as a cornerback prospect. But what we saw last year, I think it was better than the 2023 tape. And the 2023 tape was okay. It was solid. And he's still growing. And he's only focusing on cornerback part-time. So you think about him full-time, if that were to be his path through the NFL, I think he could be a phenomenal player. I think he could be a top 5 player as a cornerback if he reaches his ceiling, because there's really no reason why I won't believe that. Some of my knocks on him as a cornerback, I don't even like saying they're knocks, but I think he's a willing tackler, right? He is a willing tackler, just like he is a willing blocker. He's not a bad blocker on offense, but I still think he could improve. As a tackler, he doesn't really bring pop, right? Like I like a corner like Surtain. I know we always bring him up, but there's reasons why. He can give you a little bit of pop, right? He can give you a little bit of pop, a little bit bigger guy. Hunter's sub 190. So he's one of those guys who's going to hit you. If it's like a running back coming at you, he's going to hit you and he can like latch on and he can roll over and you're going to fall. But I don't view him as somebody who is an enforcer in run support, but he's good in run support and he's where he needs to be and he's willing. And that's all I'm asking for. I just hope that the frame, because he is a little bit slender, and if he is playing some offense, he stays healthy. Because he hasn't stayed healthy all throughout his college career. So that's another little part of Hunter that I think that coaching staff must be cognizant about.
That's fair. And that's a concern that a lot of teams will have, is if there's any kind of concern. And I will say this, I think you broke that down eloquently. There's a lot that I want to dive into and unpack individually. I saw a lot of fun reps where he uses his recognition of the play to come down. And I guess these aren't big pops, but they're like good plays on a screen or good plays on a short pass, where it's just you diagnosed it, you used your instincts, and you understood where the play was going to go. And you're not the biggest hitter, but you made the play. And I think as far as what you said, I think a lot of NFL coaches will look at it like based on what you said and be like, well, guess what? If we can get this guy to just fully focus on corner full time, then we're going to get a completely different player than we've seen and he's already a good player at that position. Then what can we get at him? Because no matter what's going to happen with him, you'll see examples on tape already of him baiting quarterbacks, which you love to see him with
all the time, dude.
All the time, which
UCLA game
interceptions and PBUs all the time. And you'll see examples of him understanding zone concepts, understanding that passing concept, because he plays receiver, right? Like he understands where the ball is supposed to go, where the quarterback's supposed to go with the ball, and where the quarterback ultimately may go with the ball. And that's what allows him to bait these quarterbacks into making decisions that seem like good ones to them, but they're not, because he has the athleticism to close and he's basically daring and hoping they go in that direction. And it's going to lead to a lot of PBUs, a lot of interceptions, plays on the football. Go ahead.
The UCLA game in 2023, where he was the outside cornerback in press. He presses his guy outside. He knows pre-snap there's a number 2 receiver right there. And if it's a quick game concept, upon that outside release, he's saying this could be a quick game concept outside with my cornerback pre-snap inside of me in inside leverage. And that gives the quarterback the tell, like, okay, if Travis Hunter presses and then rides the number 1 receiver up the sideline, I'm going to have leverage to the outside for a quick out route to my number 2. But Hunter knew that. So Hunter pressed, turned outside, and then just quickly came right back to undercut the number 2 and then intercepted the UCLA quarterback. Like that kind of knowledge and processing, like that kind of stuff's happening very quickly. And it seems like it's slow in his mind, right? Like he has elite play speed, meaning that he can play very fast, but he also processes at a very quick rate, meaning that the game comes to him very slowly. So he can react as is fit to make the best decision and put his team in the most advantageous position to have success. And he does that in both offense and defense. But you see that from a defensive perspective, you're like, dude, that's smart, man. You don't see a lot of cornerbacks have that type of knowledge and wherewithal to make that kind of play.
Very good point. And I think you add that to some of the things like how strong his hands are, how great he is at the catch point, which will help him on defense, making plays on the ball, PBUs or interceptions. Then with what you said before, from a physical tool standpoint, speed, raw speed, the elusiveness and the lateral agility, that the way that he can break on a football, click and close, his fluidity as far as breaking on in breaking and out breaking routes. There's really no reason in my mind that when you consider the trajectory, how much better he got from 2023 to 2024 on tape, if he gets that, like if he focuses on corner, let's say, and just plays a few snaps of receiver, red zone, third downs, and maybe like some God Abbott plays, if that's what his role is in receiver. I know you said like that he could be like a really good corner. I think when you consider what he is from an instincts and zone corner defender and what he is from a playmaking standpoint, plays on the ball with his hands and with his speed and everything. If he just gets down more of the stickiness and coverage, like he could be the best corner in the NFL. I don't think that's impossible to say when you consider what he offers outside of just
Yeah,
coverage.
it's certainly within his ceiling. And even when we say like more sticky, like we're nitpicking here.
Yeah.
We're
Just
like,
like when he is a receiver, there's the only thing you can do is nitpick. There's nothing else you can do here.
and this is why Dan and I, not to speak for you, Dan, but I'm pretty sure you're in the same boat as me. It's like, yes, if he's there at 3, just take him. Don't overthink it. Take him. Don't do what. And look, we supported the Well, we tepidly supported what the Giants did in 2021. We wanted the Giants to get Rashawn Slater. We wanted the Giants to go after Micah Parsons. We did not think that that was in the cards for Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman, right? But trading down, that was the right process. And we liked the process of them doing it. If the Giants were not going to make the right decision, at least execute upon the process to give the Giants more capital. Didn't work out in retrospect. I think there's enough time has passed to say that did not work out. But right here, let's not allow a Micah Parsons or a Rashawn Slater or a possible elite superstar to slip through our fingers and make a decision that I think ultimately could bite us in the ass, because this is the type of player who could change your entire in your locker room and really just help both sides of the football. I mean, that's just something you just don't see too often.
This guy's more Micah Parsons than Rashawn Slater, too, in my opinion, from a ceiling
Slater's
standpoint.
Slater's been
a good player. He's been a solid
hurt,
player. He's been hurt, but he's a good starter. But Parsons is a difference-making draft pick, and I think Hunter is a difference-making draft pick. And you get to the point where you might not see him on the Giants. If he reaches his ceiling at corner, you might not see him make 1 million interceptions a year because they just won't throw to his side. Like, that's the potential of what he can become. But that's so much better when you have that Darrelle Revis that just locks down a whole side of the field. Schematically, if you're a good enough defensive coordinator, if you're anyone with any kind of insight as defensive coordinator, you can develop and design a defense that's so advantageous when you have one side of the field where you don't need to put safety help and you can just trust that the ball won't come there because quarterbacks are too scared to throw it because he stays in phase every play. And if he doesn't, he's baiting you into an interception. I don't want to take that chance. Now half the field is cut off for your offense.
And you also brought this up too a little bit earlier. It's his ability to understand the adjacent routes and know where they're going to be based on his film study. And when those adjacent routes, look, quarterbacks might not want to target him, right? But if he's on one side of the field and there is a 2-man route concept, they could throw to that side of the field expecting him to be cleared out, but he's not cleared out because he understands the concept and he has the instincts that are just elite to be able to jump Drew Phillips's route and then come away with an interception, which he did. I think he had a play like that against Oklahoma State where the Oklahoma State quarterback reared back to throw, and then you just see Hunter just undercut it, and you're like, oh, that wasn't even towards Hunter. Hunter was somewhere else. So, like little things like that, man, I look at Hunter and I just know, and I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, that every team that plays the Giants are going to be like, damn it, dude, they got that guy. You know, like we need more dudes like that. Dexter Lawrence is that. It's like, damn it, they got that guy. Andrew Thomas is that. Neighbors is that. You can argue Brian Burns is that, and I would go along with that as well. There's really no one else that's like that on the New York Giants right now. Hunter, completely that, dude. People are like, damn it, dude. The cornerback who's going to have to cover him is going to be like, shit, I got him and Neighbors. They're going to be crapping themselves, dude. You're going to see the Eagles and the Cowboys in Washington start making mad investments into their cornerback room. The Eagles already did, but those other teams will because they have to find a way to stop these two if the Giants can actually leverage their skill sets, which
that's the wide receiver side too. Like the corner side is almost as high of a ceiling because if you shut down half the field, you as a defense, it's very hard to move the football against you. And I do think he has that upside, to be completely honest. I mean, I think he's a great example of something some of the things we discuss a lot on this podcast, Nick, where in our opinions as analysts, you have to draft players and not positions. Because to me, it would be a no-brainer between him and Abdul Carter, honestly. And I love Abdul Carter, but I just think this highly of Travis Hunter. I really, and I didn't feel that way at first. I was a little more open to it because look, they need Carter more, right? You'd rather have the trench player. We talked about this. We want to start building from the inside out, but that's just not how things work, in my opinion. And when it comes to this prospect, he is one of the best prospects I've ever
Yeah.
evaluated, in my personal opinion. Not to say Carter's not a great prospect.
Yeah.
He is.
I,
Um,
I wouldn't say it's a no-brainer. I would say that you need to, like, I think there is a good conversation that's going to happen within the front office of the New York Giants between those two. Ultimately, I would certainly go with Hunter, but man, like Carter is nice, dude. The foot thing, a little scary, but
Carter's nice. And I'm not minding the foot thing. That'll heal.
I hope.
And we'll talk about Carter. We're going to do a profile on him. So I shouldn't
Sure.
say no brainer. I want to amend that too. Just what you said. I would definitely take on Hunter over
Yeah,
Carter.
yeah.
And it's not a knock on Carter. And I would lean in the original direction of wanting to take Carter because I'd rather have a trench player always. But you can't do it with this guy Hunter. He's the best player in this class by far, in my opinion, and he's one of the best prospects I've personally ever got a chance to watch on tape. As we've talked about throughout this podcast, there's very few weaknesses in his profile on either side of the ball, despite never having time to concentrate on either position.
You're gonna have two guys who are elite at the catch point.
Oh yeah.
And that was one of another reason why I think I'm going Hunter over Malik is we were a little unsure of Malik's catch point skills.
Still some
Because
questions on the hands.
The hands for sure, but like him at the catch point last year, he showed me enough. You're like, oh yeah, you're elite. But in college, remember, it was just like Jane Daniels throwing to a wide open slot fade and Malik
A
Neighbors.
lot, yeah.
A lot.
Running under it. Neighbors just running under it.
Yeah, you got to worry about Jaden. You got to worry about Brian Thomas Jr. And you got to worry about Malik Neighbors. Like that offense was so fun. LSU puts together like every 4 or 5 years, they put together an offense that I could just watch every single one of those games and just have an absolute blast, dude. Like 2019 was so much fun too.
I bet so many LSU and UNC games overs, the team total overs the last year with Drake May and Jaden Daniels. It was so fun. More for Daniels. I mean, he would just go over every game that offense. But yeah, I think rounding this out for me at least, Travis Hunter's a player that I most want in this draft class. Cam Ward, I've already decided, is not going to be a Giant, so I've ruled him out. I'm not considering him. As far as what's available to the Giants, I want Travis Hunter over Abdul Carter. I want him over Shedeur Sanders at 3. I want him over any trade back possibility. The one that I would consider, Nick, is if a really projectably bad team is offering me their 2026 first. But that scenario is like unlikely, right? Like maybe the Raiders are a consideration for that. But I think they're going to win some games with Geno and Carroll. Carroll's a good coach, and Geno's a much better quarterback than people realize. So it's not really a position I want to be in. Like if it somehow could get the Browns, that's obviously not the case because they're picking ahead of the Giants. But if that was somehow a possibility, I'd be open to potentially giving up a prospect like this to get a 2026 from a team like the Browns, who are most likely going to be in the top 3 or 5. But as you work your way down the list, Nick, and the possible trade back teams that are in play, not many of them are guarantees in my mind to have a top 5 pick. And if I'm not getting a top 5 pick, 2026 one, it loses a lot of value to me.
I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah.
Look, this is there's 3 players that we want, and Giants picking 3rd. And I'm glad that we're not picking 4th this year.
Same.
New England can eat that after last year.
If New England was at 3, they would take Hunter, and we'd have no chance at him. And then we'd be like, can the Browns take Sanders so we can get Carter? And otherwise, and by the way, this is not a guarantee on my mind, at least. I think the Giants could take Sanders over Hunter. I think it could go Ward, Abdul Carter. Giants are on the clock with Hunter and Sanders, and the Giants just take Shedeur Sanders at that pick.
And how would you feel before we get it? Like what's your feeling if that happens?
No, I think we discussed this. I don't know which one's going to drop first. We discussed this on the Sanders profile prospect, but I wouldn't be happy with it. I'm just going to be honest about the situation. I'm not very high on Sanders long term. So as far as what his ceiling is, I think he can maybe be a decent floor player, I guess, maybe. And there's, again, like I said on that pod, there's so much room to grow for Sanders. He could be a much different player now than he is now. But as far as what I have to work with, which is just his college tape and his traits and his projectable traits, I would never want to take a player like that over Hunter personally.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Look, I'm going to try. If the Giants do select Sanders, I'm going to try to remain optimistic. It's not going to be my first choice. I think we made that clear in the Sanders profile, which has dropped. So you guys can go and watch that by the time this drops. But for Travis Hunter, I hope the Browns don't take him. I still think the Browns could just select him, and the Giants are sitting there and it's Carter or Sanders. And then in my opinion, you take Carter still.
Oh yeah, and that's then we'll go over that in the card profile. But I would also prefer Card over Sanders as well. To be completely honest, I don't like the idea of Sanders, Dart, or any of those guys at 3 overall personally.
No, neither do I.
Yeah. All right. That's all the time we have for today. This has been the Travis Hunter profile, a prospect that I do truly consider generational. I don't think you made that comment on this show, Nick, and I'll let you not have to make that comment. I know you don't like saying stuff like that, but I'll be the one to say it from what I've seen. This has been one of the most fun prospects I've ever evaluated. And I thought Neighbors tape was fun. The minute we started watching Neighbors, next Nick texted me like, "You're going to freaking love this dude." And I did. But man, Travis Hunter, being able to watch him play corner and receiver is just so damn cool. And I don't know anyone who could do what he does for the Giants this year or next year or 10 years. I don't think they'll ever really have an opportunity to draft a prospect like this again, to be honest. This is a one-time thing in their franchise history. So to me, yes, he doesn't play quarterback. Great. I mean, look, I can't force quarterback. It is what it is. I believe more than anyone that quarterback's almost the entire game, but that doesn't mean I can just magically snap my finger and say, this guy's ranked number 2. So that means you got to take, that's not how I do things as an evaluator. I need to believe in their long-term ceiling. So for me, that's Hunter. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Please do us a favor. I forgot to ask, hit the like button, leave a comment, help us grow this show. We need your help. It's the month of April. We want to put out a lot of content and we need to get this page rolling and we need to get some videos banging through the algorithm. So help us do that. I'm surprised I didn't get a look from Nick when I said
You got to wing.
banging
You got to
through the
wing.
algorithm. So, all right. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.